The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Wednesday, hump day in the Riv.
And you're making me look bad.
Well, you know, you only see me this way once a month. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to loosen the tie a little bit. You know, I'm out of the meeting, so it's like...
You're still making me look bad.
Yeah. Well, you know, I only do this under duress.
I know.
I don't like to play dress up, but hey, but you got to do it.
Weddings and funerals,
That's
right?
Weddings and funerals.
There you go.
Or mandatory dress up. So.
There you go.
So what's on it? Oh, we got big news, but you get let's hit it because I got big news in New Bedford there. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, did you see the video? They even got it on video.
Yeah, they got it. Of course, they hired PIs.
Yeah.
You know, when they used to do that. You know, all over the state, when we had a big controversy about people getting off on disabilities, didn't deserve them, and everything else, and you know, of course, they used it to deny the people who truly do deserve them. They tried to minimize them, and obviously, being on a retirement board, if you're entitled to a disability pension, you should absolutely get one, because if you got injured in the line of duty and you got hurt on the job, well, you know.
Yeah, well, this fire chief, acting fire chief.
Well, when you're a faker,
yeah,
you don't deserve anything.
Yeah,
so.
this acting fire chief filed workers' compensation reports, or injured in the line of duty reports, and his injuries were not consistent with what he was doing. They got a video of him taking down 185 or 175 pound
gas grill, yeah, I saw
smoker or whatever it was, off the back of his truck, and he was doing that without any hoist or anything, and then he took his dolly and put it in place there, and he was still doing it. And according to what they reported, he has received over $250,000.
Yeah, because I believe they said that he's been out for 16 months.
Right.
And the thing is that, yeah, I understand what they're saying, because if he was either the chief of the department or a deputy chief or something like that, they said, and realistically, it's hard for me to fathom how you could seriously injure yourself with a physical injury, because normally when you're at that capacity, you're the incident commander,
right,
and you're the one that's giving orders. You're not pulling hose or chopping holes in roofs and pulling ceilings and stuff like that.
But he was the acting chief of the department, which is even less of an opportunity. Somebody was trying to say, I think I talked to somebody already, because of course I got a ton of calls on this. Right.
Somebody was saying, oh no, he wasn't the chief when he injured. I'm saying, well, why would they make him interim chief if he was out IOD?
Right.
They couldn't make him. He had to be the chief.
Right.
When he got injured, which is another reason you put in for you well, you know. Apparently it looked like it. Everybody's entitled to due process. I want to see what happens. But you got to remember, the way it works is, if he's injured when he's the chief of the department, that's what his pension's based on if he gets a disability.
Right.
Not deputy chief's pay or district chief's pay. When you're injured, whatever rank you're in, that's what you get your retirement based on. So that was probably a huge pay bump. Obviously, in 16 months, if he made over $200,000, he's making pretty good money. But if this is true, there's some serious issues. I can tell you right now, they have grounds. Not only they fired him, I think he tried to resign so he could retire. Now we'll see how far the city pushes it, because he could actually be denied his pension, because that's what he did was, he fraudulently filed that claim. That's moral turpitude,
right?
And he can be denied his pension.
We've never denied a pension in Massachusetts. I don't ever remember a pension being denied.
I
know in Fall River we haven't.
I've been on a board now 6 years, 2 terms. I'm in my 3rd term now. But to my knowledge, even when I was the president of the union for 24 years, I've never seen fundamentally a pension completely, I've seen people get off the job like he did when they knew they were going to get busted and then retire. But I have not seen anybody's pension revoked, that, to my knowledge, and maybe somewhere in the state they have done that. Let's see what happens, because apparently somebody had it in for him. Because they followed him around and they taped him. I mean, what I saw on the news today, it's pretty damning.
He must have pissed off somebody big time.
I mean, I hope he didn't claim a back injury because he was horsing around.
I believe that's what he did
I hope
claim.
he's not. I hope he didn't claim a back injury, because that thing was a big smoke, or whatever, a grilled smoker. And then not only did he slide it on the bed and put it on a dolly, I don't know if you saw it, they had another thing when he took off a giant. To the trailer hitch, there was an attachment, like a shelf where you put stuff. They showed him taking out, and it's all metal, pulling it out and walking it into his garage. So that thing weighs a little bit of.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, they've got a lot of evidence to say that obviously he's going to claim that he got a miraculous cure the day they made that film, and he was going to come back to work anyway. So I don't know. But
well, the really interesting part about it is that he collected all that money tax-free.
Yep.
Injured in the line of duty pay is tax-free.
Tax-free. Yep.
Now, are they going to go after him for the back taxes?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I would. I mean, I would think so.
And he doesn't want. Bad enough, you got the mayor and the city coming after you.
Then you got.
You don't want the IRS. You better get the money. He's going to have to pay back that money, because they're turning him over to the IRS.
That's right.
Because they're going to revoke his IOD status, and that will now that income is taxable.
And they're going to turn him over to the Mass DOR.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a mess. It's going to be.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be him. I'll be honest.
And what disturbs me from a perspective of somebody who ran a lot of pensions and a lot of disabilities. People like this hurt the system for the good guys, the guys who were truly injured. I mean, I did a lot of them. I had a guy that fell off the aerial ladder at a fire on Rodman Street, came down linear 100 feet and slammed on a pedestal, the metal pedestal, and broke, 80 bones. And he was a fairly young guy, and he's still alive, but he had to retire from the job. He's totally, arthritis everywhere, can barely function. He's got a pension, and he deserves it. People are, they're shot in the line of duty, they're injured in the line, they're hit by cars, police officers. It's there for a reason, and it's deserved when you truly are injured. This is what. Now that I'm on the retirement board, you see these claims coming in, and that's why the retirement board has a fiduciary obligation to make sure that these things are legit, because it's a slap in the face to the people who are truly injured working. Because let's face it, even in private industry, this is not like obviously it's a little bit better deal because it's the taxes and stuff like that,
right.
And it's 100% of your pay rather than the workman's comp rate.
Right.
But even if you're injured in a line of private industry and you can no longer work, you get a lifetime settlement payment.
You hope.
You hope. Yeah, if you got a good lawyer.
If you got a good lawyer, you will.
But the thing is that this to me, this is disturbing that the chief of a department would send that kind of message, trying to game the system, because there have been too many firefighters and police officers, correctional officers, and even people at DPW and DCM have been injured, in doing their job, and then it makes people, say, well, they shouldn't get disabilities, or they shouldn't do. It's not true. I mean, we had a guy that was on a fire department, witnessed the baby die, couldn't deal with the job anymore. Even though they tried to counsel him and stuff, he couldn't do the job anymore after seeing a dead baby, which is difficult for everybody, but it's part of the job. And he got off the job. He got a job in DCM, and it's ironic because it was on Ellsbury Street. They didn't shore the hole up completely. The hole collapsed on him. and now he's totally disabled. He walks with 2 canes and he's all screwed up. You know. Now here's a guy that was on a fire department, gets off the job because of the trauma he faced on that job, gets a job. You'd say, oh, hey, no big deal. But here's a guy that deserves a pension. He had they had to call fire department, all kinds of shore up the hole, get him out of the hole, and he was permanently disabled. People like that who were injured through no fault of their own, doing their job, are entitled to that. And I don't care, I will argue that point with anybody, but it's the fakers that ruin it for everybody,
Well, I remember a few years back, I mean, maybe you remember when local news was covering people who were receiving disability pensions, and they were moving to Florida.
Yeah.
And they actually hired people to follow them in Florida,
Yeah.
and they wanted to know why nothing could be done because they were in Florida, and why they couldn't revoke their disability pensions.
Yeah.
It's...
They can, but they, some of them, they just don't have the wherewithal, or they, whatever it is, because, how many times, remember that guy, was it Rhode Island? The guy was like Mr. Rhode Island, he was weightlifting,
Yep.
and he was out on a back injury or something like that, and the guy was like, but they see that all the time. There was a guy that was running out on a heart bill that was running marathons. It's like, really? You can run a marathon, but you can't go to work? Come on, 26 miles. I need a golf cart to go that far, for God's sakes. But the reality, I was never a runner anyway. Short distances. I'm not.
No, your kid was.
Yeah, my son was a great runner, but I was always, you give me a football on a 40-yard dash, I could move. But I got way too much body and muscle mass. I was never a distance runner. I either got to go fast, really short distances, or if I'm going slow, I'm like a turtle. It's like, that's it. So, but we're laughing about this, but this is disgraceful.
It is.
I mean, the chief of a fire department. This is just, and it disturbs me because, like I said, I've seen men. I've had to run pensions for the widows of people who died in the line of duty. I've had to get pensions for men who were grotesquely injured in the line of duty and stuff like that. And it's like, and then you get a bum like this, and there's no other way to say it. He's a bum,
And I mean, we have politicians who are receiving disability pensions.
That's true.
And they're working full time.
Yeah, because the politicians made their own rules.
They made their own
rules.
rules.
They made their own rules. Yeah, everybody else has to pay. They don't have to. Though. It's like, okay, the politicians are exempt from everything.
From everything, exactly.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what happens. We've got politicians exempted from everything. So,
hey, what can you do? Well, speaking of politicians.
Speaking of politicians. Okay.
Last night we had the State of the Commonwealth Address.
Ooh. Tall Duvall.
A line of bull, if ever I heard it.
Chucky.
I mean, he was making sure that people knew what he had done and what he had accomplished. And people were very, clap, clap, clap constantly. Lots of hugs, lots of, everything before the speech. They ran it pretty long. I hate it when they do that. If we're there for the State of the Commonwealth Address, let's hear that. I don't want to hear every other person speak. I don't want to see musicians. I don't want to see, we have to recognize this one, we got to recognize. No. Recognize all these elected officials. I want to recognize all the elected officials. Boom, done. That's it. I want to recognize the Secretary of Commerce. Boom, done. That's it.
Yeah, well, that's what it's about, though. It's a photo op.
Yeah, it's a big political brouhaha.
I could feel his pain for the people during COVID. He was talking about how much they suffered. But when we had over $1 billion surplus, they weren't considering any tax cut or rebate or now all of a sudden I'm going at that grandiose gesture in an election year for some people. It makes it look good. Well, my prediction, I'm gonna put on my Karnak the Magnificent hat, and Charlie Baker's life in politics is not over. He's taken a sabbatical. I think he's laying the groundwork for something. That exit speech was fundamentally, look how good I've been as a governor.
Right.
So later on, he can revisit that speech and say, look what I did in Massachusetts, and have excerpts of that speech on his campaign, and that's the thing, because right now, positionally, politically, because we do talk a lot of politics, and he's not really positioned well to run as a Republican.
No.
Because the Republican Party has really begun to change. The Liz Cheney Republicans that like a lot of wars, and they're really pro themselves. Rhinos, they're really Republicans, they're not really conservatives. Now we see what's happening in the country. The entire country is swinging now. All the crime, the horrific crime. There was another police officer shot yesterday.
Right.
So it's like every single day there's been a police officer shot or assassinated. And, they continue, politicians, to do everything they can to just forget about it. The media portrays it. And, what are they saying? You got Lightfoot, that troll on crack. She reminds me of a troll on crack when I look at her. Blabbing and blathering about the guns, the feds are going to do something about the guns. And then the new mayor of New York is a former cop saying the same thing. They don't blame the person who shot the gun. They blame the gun.
Right.
And the reality is, I made this on a show we did yesterday. It wasn't Spindle City. But I'll tell you what I'll do with these phonies that want to blame everything except the criminals. And they want to let the criminals out with no bail. They want to let the criminals out and shorten their sentences, let them out of jail so they can kill again. I will guarantee you that 90% of the guns used in these crimes by these career criminals are not legal, because no career criminal walks into a gun store and buys a gun, because you can't. Especially, and the irony is, the people who are complaining have the strictest gun laws in the country. New York State, California, Massachusetts, Illinois, the places with all this gun crime, and these boneheads expect you to believe that you can legislate away gun crime. The only thing that's going to do is make selling guns far more profitable to the illegal gun dealers. Because now, you're not going to get guns that are stolen from law-abiding citizens that you can get a discount on, because some criminal broke into a guy's house and he doesn't want to have a gun, so he goes, oh, I'll sell it on the street. So it keeps the price down. But now you take away all the guns and the protection from law-abiding citizens who have a right to protect themselves. What are you going to do? It's like the guy who assassinated those 2 police officers. Unfortunately, that second officer died in New York. He had a 50-round canister magazine on a Glock. And they were making a big deal out of that magazine. Yeah, you're right. Nobody should have a 50-round magazine with a handgun. Why do you need 50 rounds with a handgun? That's not what you normally use a handgun for. So, but they are legal. But that wasn't bought legally.
Right.
The guy's a felon. He's got a record 9 miles long, and he's got mental issues. So he's got that magazine and that gun, both of which are illegal, obviously. But now they're going to blame the magazine, and the thing is that, listen, these people are going to kill you anyway. Remember, there were 2 stabbings in New York. A woman was pushed in front of a subway train. A nurse was punched in the head and fractured her skull and died in Chicago, I think it was. You can go all over the country. And there was one year they were complaining a lot about gun crime, and when you did the stats, there were more people killed with hammers than there were with guns.
Yep.
So you wokies that just want to pretend that you're doing something by eliminating law-abiding guns, people who are law-abiding citizens, get a grip on yourself. If laws worked, New York would have the least amount of gun crime. California would have the least. And where are they going nuts? Were they running around shooting people, carjacking? Carjackings went up 500% in California.
Right.
Try to get a gun. Go online. Don't take my word for it. Go online. See what states restrict high-capacity magazines. California, New York, Illinois, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, all the blue states. And half the guns on the market are restricted. So background checks, they go back basically your entire life. I know a guy that had a gun permit for 25 years, and he moved out of state, and then he wanted an out-of-state permit to come back. He had a Massachusetts gun permit for 20-some years. Comes back to Massachusetts, and now he has to get a non-resident permit. He applies for the permit. They flagged something he did in high school. The guy's like 60. He had to go in and prove it was nothing. And, you know, they went back to the high school. And although they had issued him a permit for 25 years in Massachusetts, but now when they're getting so, but that's the thing. The thing is, law-abiding people go in and buy a gun. And look, I'm not saying that a person who bought a gun legally will not do something like it. You know, there have been crimes like that. But the problem is, the only good thing about that is when those people get it, they get caught pretty quickly because the gun's registered.
Right.
And they'll go to jail, unlike the criminals. If you're not a career criminal and you get busted, you're probably going to go to jail. But if you're a career criminal, they'll say, oh, the poor thing never really got a chance. He's only got 75 felony convictions going back 27 years. So let's give him a $100 bail and let him back out on the street. He only committed like 3 murders.
Right.
Don't worry about it.
Right.
And that's the wokies. So you got this guy that was a former police officer, and shame on him in New York, trying to blame guns, and he knows better.
Well, you know, gun laws are only going to keep legal people legal. That's all.
Oh, from getting guns. That's their
that's the other thing.
objective.
It's going to keep legal, you know, normal people, regular people, legal people from getting a gun. So it's not something that we really need to, concern themselves about. We got to concern ourselves about the politicians who want to get rid of guns.
Yeah.
Totally. What's a police officer going to do if we don't have guns?
Yeah, well, they'll let police officers have guns. Like in England, they don't carry normally the bobbies, but
Right.
they do if they're dealing with an armed somebody, they do have. But you know what the thing is? They're all phony. It's all political crap. It makes them look good to their wokey friends
Right.
and everything. Because the reality is, let's look at another. Let's get off drunken driving. Drunken driving. One
That is one of the worst.
One of the most heinous crimes that you could ever see. Some imbecile gets behind a wheel, drunk on his butt, and mows down a kid or somebody like that. I remember years ago when my son was playing tennis, there was a kid that was one of the best young tennis players in the world. He was only like 11 or 12 years old, and he was one of the best players in New England. And my son played against him. I remember that. The kid was a phenomenal, had a great future. Could have got a college scholarship, maybe become a pro, but he would at least went to college on it, and then maybe, but got mowed down by a drunk driver while he was walking to the tennis courts. Dusty Allwood, the president of PFFM, was killed by a drunken driver. One of the best union men I ever knew. It's a reprehensible and heinous crime. But do you know every time mandatory sentences come in, our legislators don't, they
Of course
reject
not.
them?
It might be them.
You know why? Because it might be one of their relatives or them.
That's right.
That's why they're a bunch of phonies. You will not see. That's why they love to be able to let people go with these DAs. They love to be able, because they're afraid that somebody they know is going to get busted. And if they get busted and there's a mandatory sentence attached, there's nothing they can do. So, look, don't give me that con. I've been here too long. I saw drunken driving laws go up to there. They all talk about mothers against drunk driving. There's legislation, but they won't punish them. You know, there are some countries where you lose your license for life. I don't know what Japan's is now, but I remember Japan. If you got caught drunken driving, you lost your license for 10 years. And the second time if you got caught driving on a suspended license or driving drunk again, you lost the thing for life and you did jail time. That's why there's not a lot of drunken drivers in Japan.
That's it.
So, but, you know, it's just nuts. And
Well, you know, and that's, you know, to shift this a little bit, you know, the governor was talking last night about, he talked about domestic abuse and how he spoke with women and they were beaten and battered. And you know, I know that domestic abuse is a terrible thing, but he said, we're trying to get some legislation passed to tighten up the loopholes in the law. Why didn't those loopholes in the law get passed last year?
Yeah.
Why are we going to try to pass it in this session? And you know what's going to happen is they'll pass it in this session to take effect in January of next year.
Yeah.
Okay? Then he said we're trying to get the loopholes filled on the dangerousness hearings, because there's dangerousness hearings. And we want to fill those loopholes so that we make it more difficult for people to get out of, you know, these crimes and get bail and whatnot. But again, that's next year. It's like the taxes. The tax breaks he's offering. More deductions for rent, more deductions for children. Now he's offering deductions for taking care of your parents, which is something new. And people who make less than so much money won't have to pay taxes at all. Well, if they don't have to pay taxes at all, why don't you make it so that no state taxes get taken out of the paycheck? Oh, wait a minute. Touching our money, can't do that, you know? I mean...
No, you're right. And this is the thing. They're all absurd. And it's like we get back to all the nutty things that they say. If you look at it logically, you know they're nuts. They're absolutely nuts. Because look at this guy that shot those 2 police officers with the 50-round magazine. They said that he came out shooting, and he kept shooting after they were down. And remember, these are the people that want to send social workers on those calls. It was a domestic. They baited him in with a domestic call. Now, everybody knows anything that has 1 grain of knowledge about policing knows that the 2 most dangerous things they respond to are traffic stops, which 1 officer was killed, and domestic, which those 2 officers were killed. Now they have ambushes to deal with, and they were baited into that ambush on a domestic. What happened if the wokies got their way and they sent a social worker with those 2 police officers? We'd have a dead social worker, because he came out firing and kept firing after the 2 officers were down. So, you know, I mean, what they say is purely political. They don't care about fixing this, because they're going to send they're talking about having a war with Ukraine that means nothing to the United States strategically, so they can all get rich on the armaments, because the borders of Ukraine are sacred. Nobody can encroach on a national border except ours. The same people who are in the Congress complaining about we got to go and we got to send arms and we're going to get 8,000 troops on alert and we're going to get ready to go to Ukraine and defend Ukraine. Guess what? We got 2 million people that came across the border last year, and they're going to be in excess of 2 million this year. Why isn't the southern border of the United States as sacred as the border of Ukraine? Because they don't live anywhere near these people. And then they just had a video of these people, single men being put on buses and getting cabs to the airport so they can go all over the country.
Yep.
So listen, don't believe them. They lie. If their lips are moving, they're a politician. They're lying.
That's an old one, but it's so true. Well, I want to thank you for inviting us into your home. And remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. We'll see you on Friday. Have a great day.